Most of us never learned how to train our brains, which is why most of us needlessly settle, struggle, and worse, suffer. My name is Chris Doris, and I want to make brain training mainstream. This is my series, Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. I'm interviewing badasses from all walks of life on what mental toughness means to them and their unique approaches to strengthening their minds. Hey everyone, welcome back to Tough Talks, Conversations on Mental Toughness. And easily one of the most important and profound applications of mental toughness, or influences or byproducts of mental toughness, is health and wellness, right? The mind-body relationship, which science is having us understand on a much deeper level as time goes by. And thank God for that. Science is showing us that the power of the mind has been and continues to be highly misunderstood, underappreciated, and underutilized. So, as a coach, when I ask people, what does ideal life look like for you? What does your dream life look like? 100% of the time, of course, people include in the response optimum health. So I am super jacked today to be able to, I'm actually bragging about this, that we landed an amazing badass guest. A movie came out this last year that I watched, and it's a documentary entitled Heal. And it's all about the mind-body connection, right? And everything that I just mentioned. There are 17 featured experts from all different disciplines who are all brilliant geniuses. The likes of Michael Bernard Beckwith, Joan Boryashenko, Gregg Barden, Deepak Chopra, Dr. Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, even Marianne Williamson. I mean, and the list goes on. These people are all contributors in this amazing documentary. I have watched the movie 4 times, studied it this week for about 6 hours. I'm not exaggerating. Took copious notes. And I have to say, I feel better and smarter. I feel like this is it already has profoundly influenced the way that I think, and the way that I coach, and the way that I write, and the content, of course, that I provide. So I am super jacked to say that I have the writer, director, and producer of the documentary Heal with us today as a guest. I was absolutely determined to get her on. As soon as I saw the movie, I knew we have to have Kelly Noonan Gores as a guest, and I'm happy to say it didn't take as much effort as I anticipated I was going. I was fully prepared to stalk her through Instagram. I think I only got to like semi-stalk status. She responded actually quite rapidly after only maybe 48 messages. No, I'm kidding. It was maybe like 3. And with unbelievable enthusiasm, she just said, hell yeah, I'd love to be a guest on your show, which warms my heart. So without further ado, folks, let me introduce you. This is going to be a doozy, so strap yourself in. This is going to be a good one. I suspect it's going to be a little longer than average because we got a lot to talk about. Please, let's welcome Kelly Noonan Gores. So, Kelly Noonan Gores, thank you so very much for showing up today and making time to be a guest on Tough Talks.
I'm honored to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's music to my ears because as you may or may not have noticed, I was becoming a little bit pestery, whatever the word is. And I wouldn't have relented, so thank you.
I love it. I love it.
Because as I mentioned to you in one of the 1,000 messages that I sent you on Instagram and who knows what other mediums, Heal is one of my favorite movies of all time. And it's one of my top 3. And I'll tell you why. It's a documentary, right? And it had me weep several times for different reasons. And that's one of the metrics that I use to discern how badass a film is. If it really touches me.
Right.
And now I've never been really sick. I mean, the sickest I ever was, I broke my leg, had a compound fracture, and it gave me, I guess I did almost kind of die. It gave me a fatty embolism, which gave me pneumonia, but that was only like for a few days. It was because of an acute, event, right? It was a broken bone. But that's it. I never had a chronic illness. but yet my whole life has been dedicated to helping people have amazing lives, you know, and this is about that. More specific, your movie is about having an amazing life by being healthy. So anyway, so thank you for putting all the effort. I can't even imagine the amount of effort, the quantity and quality of effort that went into creating a film that is not only so powerful and important for us these days, but also has 17 freaking amazing experts as guests and speakers, as participants. You're a badass.
Oh my God. Thank you.
Yeah. I'm probably going to say, just get used to me hearing that. Get used to hearing me say that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, no, thank you. Because as I mentioned to you in one of our conversations prior to this, that your work has become mandatory viewing, studying content for my coaching clients. And they don't need to be sick for that. I mean, that's not right. Your film isn't about, just healing sickness. It's about being well. So, right. And before I put any more words in your mouth, let me start asking you one of the million. I studied your movie like I've never studied a movie before. I'm telling you right now, I have so many pages and pages. I went through legal pads. I have this 17 questions for you, one for each of your guests. No, that's not the way it really worked out. But I mean, I geeked out on your work.
I love it.
I geeked out hardcore. So here, let's get to the questions. All right. So of all the things, Kelly, that you could do with your life, of all the ways that you could spend your miraculous life, why did you choose to do this?
Great question. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Moving right along.
Moving on. Kind of like you said, like you would assume or think or, make a pretty fair assumption that I went through something heavy or tragic myself, whether it was a personal illness or losing someone to something tragic. And that just wasn't the case. It would be an easy answer if it was. I think, like your passion with mental toughness and the power of the mind and attitude, I share that same passion. And I just, over the course of I've lost track of time now because the movie took 2 years to do, but 10 years or so, yeah, like 2007, 2008, so 10, 11 years, really passionate about the power of the mind and how, we are kind of co-creators with life and, not only for law of attraction and abundance and creating and manifesting, but also how that shows up physically in you. And so just, I felt this, I would read these books that I came upon, and these concepts would come up. Like for one of the biggest books that I read that was just like an aha moment was Bruce Lipton's book, The Biology of Belief.
I love Uncle Bruce. I call him Uncle Bruce. I don't know.
Uncle Bruce. He's the greatest. He's so fun to work with. Oh my gosh.
Just so people who are watching, this is that book.
Yes.
It's one of the most amazing books ever written.
It really is. So in there, he talks about epigenetics and how we are, our thoughts, beliefs, and emotions, our perception about life, that kind of informs which genes are turned off or turned on. So when I learned that, I was like, oh my gosh, we're not victims of our DNA, how we've been conditioned for the last however many hundreds of years that we have our genetics, and we're just kind of at the mercy of this code we were passed down from our parents. And along those same lines, like I remember being a teenager and seeing these patterns that my parents had and going, I want to be really conscious of that. So I don't repeat the patterns that I'm not liking, and changing them. So I think my whole life, I've just wanted to be, just figuring out ways how to have an awesome life and also how to kind of consciously live that life and not be just another, just repeating the patterns of your pattern of your parents.
Right.
So, and I have great parents, but there's certain behaviors that they learn from their environment growing up, and there's certain.
We're not slamming any parents, but we get it. We get it.
So anyways, I guess the long story short is I'm really passionate about it. And I just, this calling in my heart, to people kind of started coming to me going, why are you so happy? How are you so healthy? Like coming to me for advice. And it was all of these experts that I put in the film, rather than sit there and talk about all of the details with individual friends, I'm like, let me just make a movie, put them all in there and teach this really empowering lesson that empowered my life.
These 17 people are powerhouses. Like, did you know them before this, or did you just work your ass off at getting in touch with them and convincing them to say yes?
Yeah, again, it was kind of like a calling. I went to Agape in LA, which Michael Beckwith.
Bernard Beckwith, yep.
Yep, he's the pastor, the Reverend.
Yeah.
And so I was going to Agape regularly at the time, 2007, 2008.
Where is that?
It was in Culver City, and now they're in Beverly Hills. They're searching for a new permanent location.
Okay.
And I would take classes from Michael, and I was just like really empowered by his teachings. And, he really taught me like, pay attention to that, like that passion in your heart. Cause that's God's way of telling you that's what you're supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? So I started kind of paying attention in my life. I grew up an actor. I grew up in Southern California, and I've been acting on and off my whole life. So I was a working actor, but I started like paying attention to, I would light up much more talking about all the things I was learning at Agape and things, like in Bruce Lipton's books and this like power of the mind. And I would light up talking about it. So I started paying attention to that. I'd light up much more than I would talking about a job I was doing, or I'd book a job and then I'd go to set and I'd be like, the passion was waning with acting. And so I started, but I have this background in film. So that's what I knew. That was my experience. So,
wow, I'm really glad for that.
Yes. Yeah, so then I felt, film is the powerful medium that I was familiar with.
But like, did you know prior to the documentary, did you know Deepak?
No,
I had Marianne Williamson.
I didn't. I love.
These are like two of the biggest names on the planet, right? In this genre, or consciousness, or spirituality, or personal development. You didn't. Dr. Joe.
No.
Gregg Barden. Are you kidding me?
No, I didn't know any of these people. Okay. I've
got a whole new set of questions for you offline.
So basically, once Reverend Michael encouraged me to follow that passion. And once you are aligned with that passion, the universe conspires to make it happen. That was exactly.
That's a big lesson. Let's slow that down.
My experience. Yeah.
Let's slow that down for people that are watching and listening. Can you say that over?
Sure.
Because here I am, I'm like, pimping you out hard, because like, oh my God, you got all these amazing people that I love so much, right? And I'm putting them up on a pedestal, which I'm totally down with, because I love these people. These people all affected my life. And you're going, yeah. And you're kind of playing it down, which I appreciate. And that's no disrespect to them. That's you saying, well, here's the deal. Here's the mechanics. So could you repeat what you said?
Sure.
About okay.
So once you kind of become conscious of what lights you up, that passion in your heart,
yeah,
follow that, the universe conspires to make it happen for you.
Like, you know what that reminds? Have you read the book, The Alchemist?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
One of the best.
That's what you're talking right now. That's the stuff.
And it's almost like a signpost. It's like when you feel that energy, when you're talking about something and you can talk about it for hours and you're energized by the topic, like that's a sign that that's what you should be doing with your life.
So Deepak, one of my favorite and most influential teachers in history, Deepak Chopra, I love his language. He always uses such wild language, but he says, inherent within your desires are the mechanics for their own fulfillment.
Love.
Right. Yeah. And that sounds like what you're talking about right now. So, the documentary is 105 minutes long, right? About like an hour and 45 minutes long. It took me, so I've watched it 3 or 4 times. This week, I didn't watch it. I examined it, right? And it probably took me 5 or 6 hours to get to start to finish, with all the rewinding and note taking and all that. And I'm telling you, that's how important it is to me But I got a tough one for you. Maybe it's not so tough because so let's make this a two-part question. The first part is a yes or no answer, right? And and if the answer is yes, then I'll just say, okay, then the second question is, okay, well, what is that? And if it's a no, then it'll still be the same question. What is it? And it's this. The first part is yes or no. Have you ever super summarized the main message of this documentary into one sentence?
Ooh,
Have you ever done that?
I've tried, so I guess it's a yes.
Okay, so what is it?
Well, it's funny because we're doing the book version of the film, and so it's kind of like you kind of have to do that for the subtitle, right?
Oh, right on. Oh, that's perfect. Oh, well.
So, well, we haven't finalized it
I'm
yet.
serving you right now.
Yeah, exactly. So it's something about, how our thoughts, beliefs, and emotions affect our health, and how to activate the innate or the powerful healer within.
Boom.
Something like that.
Yeah, that works. I love that. The healer within. So that's something that was referenced a multitude of times throughout the course of the documentary, like the inner pharmacy, the healer. I can never remember which of the experts said what, but someone said it was Dr. Joe. He said it's the energy that it's somewhere in this pile of 60 pages of notes. It was Dr. Joe. He was talking about his accident, which I never knew about. I never knew that he was I didn't know he was a triathlete, and I didn't know he got smoked on his bike by a car and compressed 6 vertebrae and was supposed to have this radical Harrington rod surgery. Okay, here is the power that made the body heals the body. And he goes on to say, the power of the spirit or whatever, the energy, right, that is pumping our blood, right, so having our hearts beat, that's digesting our food, right, is the power that heals us, is the most effective healer in the universe, right? Yeah. Okay, that's beautiful. So now, there's so many different subjects that you address that this is not a thorough list. I started this way too late in the game to have it be inclusive. But I mean, you touch on subjects, you guys touch on subjects like quantum physics, and within that it's like entanglement, which is something I hope that we can talk about at some point during our conversation today, because that's fascinating and important as hell to me, which is the connectedness, the oneness, the sameness, the us, right?
Yes.
Which some argue the illusion, all of human suffering arises from the illusion of the separate self. So that's what this stuff is about. And that's science. That's not foof.
Yes.
Right. And then there's faith healing, which is some fascinating stuff. There's some freaky stuff in your movie. Some stuff that I know people, look, you got people in your movie who call themselves divine conduits.
I know.
Who refer themselves, I love this, neuroacoustic wizard.
I know.
Wizard.
I love it.
How great is that? But then there's epigenetics, Ayurveda, neuroacoustics. We talk a lot about big pharma, which I have a big beef with, as everyone should, generally speaking. But then there's a few other techniques that you referenced that I use daily in my life and almost daily in my coaching and speaking and writing. And I would like to hear a little bit from you on both of them. And the first one is visualization, and the second one is meditation.
Okay.
All right. So visualization. So speaking of Herbert Benson, right? Did we talk about him yet?
No.
He's referenced in your movie. I can't remember the name of the amazing woman who referenced. She referred to him as one of her mentors.
Joan Gores.
Joan Gores. Oh, okay, right on, perfect. So this is also. Tell me I didn't geek out on this guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you can barely. There's straws in here, straw wrappers. Because what he does. He doesn't talk a lot about visualization. He talks about belief. Right, but as a byproduct of our belief, we're visualizing things. Whatever I'm believing, I'm seeing in the mind's eye, right? So he references all these amazing experiments, right?
Oh, cool.
That all involve deception, which all good research does, in order to promote a belief system. And that's what's being monitored, is the effect of the belief system, right? But in between the belief and the result is what's going on in your mind. Right? And a lot of that's visualizing. So in some experiments, women who are suffering from morning sickness are visualizing wellness. They're given not even a placebo. There's an experiment where they didn't give them placebo. They gave them syrup of ipecac.
Right.
You familiar with that one?
Yeah.
That's a puke poison.
Right.
Right. So not only did they, because of their beliefs and then thus their imagery, what they're imagining, not on purpose, they were influenced to do that. Mm-hmm. They were fully expecting, because of the influence that he had over their beliefs, that this pill that he gives them is going to have them be symptom-free. So not only did they get rid of the symptoms they had in the first place, they also nullified the action of this powerful vomit-inducing drug, which is amazing to me.
It's mind-blowing. I know.
Talk to me about your experience with imagery and what you learned and what you just whatever.
Yeah. So, visualization, there's so many dimensions to it. I feel like using your imagination and visualizing an outcome. Our minds are kind of hardwired for survival, which means we tend to look for in our environment kind of the threats or the worst case scenario. And so we're that's the easy path for our neurology is the worst case scenario, the threat.
Wow, that's so interesting.
And
that has me feel a little bit archaic, like a little cavemanny.
We are a little cavemanny still.
We're a little bit cavemanny.
So, which is why we're stressed. So, because our mind automatically wants to go to the worst case scenario. What happens is then we obsess over the worst case scenario, and we're just visualizing that over and over in our mind, and we're stressed out, and we're releasing stress chemistry in our bodies. Huh. And so what Joe Dispenza and Herbert Benson and all of these other people, talk about the placebo effect, and, but Joe Dispenza talks about it too. And it's quantum physics. He says, rather than the old Newtonian physics of cause and effect, quantum physics says that, we can cause an effect, and we do that with our mind and our heart. So it's, rather than just visualizing with our mind, Joe adds in the extra element of feeling the elevated emotions of, say for him, he used it when he was healing his spine, and he's sitting there paralyzed, essentially, and he had nothing else to do but use his mind.
Right.
And so
and he did a ton of it, right? He said he did 3 hours a day for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Instead of getting that surgery.
Over and over. Exactly. And so he would visualize his spine healing vertebrae by vertebrae by vertebrae. And then he would start, then his mind would go to him being in a wheelchair, which sounds
I wish he said more about that. It's a little confusing to me.
Okay.
Right? So he was visualizing. That's obviously what he didn't want.
Right.
So why was he visualizing?
His mind kind of hijacked him. It was that survival.
He's admitting that his mind went there. Like he wasn't doing that voluntarily. I see. Yeah. Thank you for that clarification. I didn't get that.
Okay.
I was probably too busy taking notes. So what you're saying is so he's doing the work, right?
He's doing the work and then
visualizing what he wants, and then the monkey mind took him off into the fear thing, into the thing he dreaded the most.
Yeah. Which
would be spending the rest of his life in a wheelchair.
Which is what
thank you so much.
Doctors planted in his mind, and so he couldn't help but.
That's important too, right? That's what. Okay, and then Deepak in the movie said, "Don't believe the diagnosis." Wait, whatever. I'll get that.
Yeah. That's a good topic.
What did he said? Don't believe the diagnosis. Don't believe the prognosis.
Don't accept the prognosis. Make your own prognosis.
Yeah, right. So right. So the doctors said you're probably never going to walk again.
Yeah. So, and Joe was like,
that's the seed.
That's the seed they planted.
Yeah.
And, many doctors do that these days, and they're not meaning harm, but they're just trying to give, the realistic in their mind scenario. And if you don't have the consciousness, you're going to buy into that belief. And just like Herbert Benson and the Ipecac, you're going to expect that result, obsess over that result, visualize that result, and ultimately create that result.
Right. Beautiful. Wow.
So visualization combined with feeling, it's such a cool, and Dr. Joe has these meditations that I do, and I really feel the energy shift in my body when I'm doing them. And it's visualizing what meditating kind of to quiet the mind, then visualizing on what it is focusing on what you want, some outcome in your life, whether it's healing from something, perfect health, whatever it is you're trying to create for yourself. And then feeling the feelings of what that would feel if you achieve that, when you achieve that.
Yeah, I remember him saying something about that, like the creating the emotion of having it already occurred.
Exactly.
Right.
And then that signals the brain to create the new kind of neural pathways. And he calls it firing and wiring the nerve cells of the brains in new ways. And
I want to acknowledge something. Another reason I love this movie is you are so infinitely unapologetic about so much stuff that very would be considered extremely ethereal, woo-woo, kind of weird, fringy bullshit. Mm-hmm. And that's important right now. Like as I listen to you, I think, why hasn't this been fully and more deeply embraced and applied? It would solve so many problems.
Yeah.
And I guess that's a stupid question because it's everything's unfolding as it should. But I'm really glad that you're accelerating the unfolding.
I do my small part.
Yeah, wow.
I try. I just feel like it struck a chord. It's so truthful to me that I could do nothing else than express my opinion. And it's just like, it resonated so deeply with me. All of these concepts, all of the quantum physics and that.
Yeah. Well, and that's nice that you said that. It's like, so much, not all, but I would say most of what was discussed in the documentary is being fully supported by research and science.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we're heading in that direction. We're so deeply ingrained and conditioned in, the other Newtonian thinking and physics, and our medical establishment is so rooted in that kind of body as a machine. They're not. We haven't been conditioned to take into account how powerful the mind is over the body, even though the placebo effect, is like
the placebo effect just didn't get the love it deserved.
No, it does not. Not yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Just beginning to.
Yeah. Now let's talk about meditation.
Okay.
But before we do, I got to acknowledge something because you're funny. You're sneaky funny. There's at least two moments in the movie where you just bust out with your own acting, right? And although you do narrate the whole thing, so you are acting because it's like, there's a shot of you. It's really very artistic because it's like a camera angle of you speaking into your phone or into your computer, and then it switches to that view, which is pretty neat. But I laughed my ass off a couple times, and one of them was when you're talking about meditation, right? And the camera angle is just fixed on the entrance to what looks like a very fancy hotel, and then the next thing you see is you in the lotus position on a bellman's cart, just kind of rolling across, just like this, right in the middle of this serious dialogue. And I started laughing my ass off so much, so I'm like, what the hell are she even talking about? I got to rewind because I was distracted by this. It was pretty funny. It's good stuff. The other one was in the very beginning when you're out in the grass field.
I know.
I don't even remember what you're talking about. And then there's a grass field. I have no clue what you guys were even talking about at that point, or what you were, talking about at that point in the movie. But I do certainly vividly remember the image of seeing you pop up with grass in your mouth. You're in a field of really tall grass and you just pop up.
we tried to have ideas. It's a serious topic, and we tried to have bring some levity to it. And we went back and forth whether it was appropriate or not. And then, people just continued to, like when we did a little test screening, people loved the humor parts and they wanted us to keep it in. So we.
Good. I'm glad you did, because I love it too.
But yeah.
So let's talk about meditation. I mean, we could talk for weeks about meditation, but just tell us a little about what kind of meditation do you practice and what's the power? Why is it so important for people to continue to further embrace the power and value of meditation?
Yeah. I think now more than ever, we need meditation just because we're inundated with so much information at a faster pace than ever in any other time in history. Mm-hmm. With smartphones and computers and, it's in news and everybody yelling at each other on TV. It's like a lot of information to process. So meditation will allow us to just kind of that create all of that information. It's like our brains are not evolving fast enough to process all that information. We just can only process what we can process. And in the future, maybe we can process a lot more, but we're still catching up. So that creates clutter in the mind. And when you have clutter and noise in the mind, you can't hear, that your intuition, you can't hear your higher self kind of guiding you. It's just a lot of noise and clutter in there. So one of the central themes to heal is, you got to create space. You got to let go to heal. And so meditation allows us to create space in our mind and quiet the noise. And when you do that, when you create that practice and create space more often, not only does that release tension, like when you build up a lot of clutter, little tiny things will bother you throughout the day. But if you have a regular practice of creating space in your mind, like stuff will come at you and you can handle it a lot more. So that's just on a basic stress level, meditation creates space and allows you to handle stress of life so much better.
Kelly, I gotta tell you, that is like the most modern and practical description or answer to that question I've ever heard in my life. Now that's kick-ass. That's cool as hell because that's important. Like we need to bring it out from the fringe, right? Because it's most like transcendental meditation is a form of meditation that is the most studied meditation of all, right? And that's the one I learned from. Actually, this is nice. I'm glad this is coming up. I originally learned it from one of the people that you dedicated this to, Dr. Wayne Dyer, the late great Dr. Wayne, who I love so much, is one of the most influential teachers in all my life. And I learned it, and he called it the gap. I learned it from him, and then I learned it more on a much more Deepaker level from Deepak at his workshops and seminars. But it's important, and I love that answer. I'm definitely making notes on that. That's, by the way, for people that are watching this, you see me keep looking down here. I'm not distracted. I'm actually incredibly dialed in. I'm taking notes to create show notes for this. So that is an amazing response. It's like, so that makes it not sound weird.
It's less more practical, yeah.
Yeah, like oh wow, holy crap. Yeah, no shit. We are definitely inundated these days with so much mental junk, clutter. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that creates the space into which we can be responsive versus reactive.
Correct. Exactly. Nailed it.
That's badass. That's badass. That's so
you even summed it up even better. That's good.
I would never have been able to do that if it hadn't been for your answer. So tell us about Anita Moorjani and her lymphoma and the whole shift from fear to love. That's unreal.
Yeah. So she was kind of, when I read her book, I think it's like 3.5 years ago now, she was the final, that story was the final catalyst to go, wow, this is it. Like, I have to make this movie.
So her story in the super duper nutshell was she had really bad cancer.
Yeah.
Like tumors all around her neck.
Like coming out of her body from her neck to her abdomen. And so she lost her best friend to cancer, and then she started freaking out and like stressing that she'd get cancer, and then she got cancer. And then she, and then
that's important. That's important. She says that. She owns that. Like she says it's the fear that led to her fear led to her cancer.
Correct.
Okay.
And so, so her story is so fascinating. I encourage everybody to read her book. It's called Dying to Be Me.
Oh, wow. What a great title.
Dying to Be Me. It's so good. And so essentially, I don't want to, it's just so good of a story, but she was on her way out. She had lemon-sized tumors coming out of her skin. Her organs were shutting down. She had 0 muscles left on her body because her body wasn't processing any nutrition. So she went to the hospital and she went into a coma. And the doctors told her husband and her family, like, come and pay your respects because she's out the dope. And so in that coma, she had a near-death experience.
Yeah. And
what's cool about the near-death experience is, what she describes, she goes into this other realm. It's like pure unconditional love, which is consistent to a lot of people's experience with near-death experience. They go into this, reconnect with source energy.
Can I just interrupt you? Can you pause on that right there? Have you ever in your life heard someone have a near-death experience and describe it as horrific?
No.
Okay. Just curious.
I haven't.
Neither have I. I don't know if there are any. But that's an interesting, I think it's pretty important.
It's a pretty important thing. Yes.
Have you ever read, has anybody ever done a book on that? Like, the fact that there is, assuming that there has never been a description of a near-death experience as unpleasant, even?
Yeah.
Quite horrific? All right, we'll have to get somebody to do some research on that.
Point.
Okay, sorry for the interruption.
So she went, and then we'll come back to that because there's significance there. She felt this unconditional love, and she's like, wow, this is amazing. And then she kind of became aware of the present, or the essence of her father. And in life, she grew up Hindu, which, you know, has very strict cultural traditions, arranged marriage and such. But she was raised in Hong Kong, which has very kind of Western education system. And so she was conflicted, and she let her parents down. She didn't want to do the arranged marriage. So she was kind of rebelling against the Hindu traditions in a lot of ways. So there was a lot of turmoil and tension between her parents and her. She felt like she embarrassed her father. So there was that whole thing. But in this other realm with the essence of her father, there was nothing but unconditional love passing back and forth. And there was just this communication, nonverbal communication, and just understanding that he was doing the best he could in life, and she did the best she could in life. And there was no judgment. It was just pure unconditional love. And so she felt that love, and the father's essence was like, you know, you're not done with living your purpose. You need to go back and live your life. And she got this kind of awareness and clarity that the reason she got her cancer is because she had made all her decisions in life out of fear. And now she felt this like unconditional love and understood that we are love, our source is love, we go back to love, and there's really nothing to fear. Wow. And her dad said, okay, now that you figured that out, go back and live your life without fear. And she's like, I don't want to go back down there to that withering body. Like, this is bliss up here. I want to stay here, you know? Wow. And he's like, you're not done living your purpose. So she, in about those moments, she came back into her body. And that in itself is fascinating, but even more fascinating, and, you know, it's documented in the medical records, is when she was in the other realm, she was aware of her brother flying in from India. She was aware of a conversation that her husband and a doctor that she had never met had, specifics of this conversation, out of earshot, 40 feet down the hall. She would have never been able to hear it. She was, you know, she could recall all of the things that were going on in physical realm as well. So she was like, there was like no time, space kind of limits, which is very cool to me.
Yeah.
And so she could recount all that. And they were like, how did you know that? How did you know the name of the doctor that treated you that you'd never met before your coma, during your coma? She's like, oh, well, he came in and the nurses couldn't find a vein and he told them to do this. And it's just wild. Yeah. So anyways, she goes back into her body with this new shift in consciousness from fear to love. And her body healed. All her cancer, the lemon-sized tumors, dissolved in front of the doctor's eyes over the next 3 weeks. And in 5 weeks, she went home cancer-free. And now she goes around the world talking about it.
5 freaking weeks.
5 freaking weeks. And so for me, she embodies that there's always hope, and how powerful the mind and our consciousness is over our health and our physiology.
And we are in our infancy stage of understanding this.
Yeah.
These stories are incredible. I made a note that she said, or she had the awareness as she was having all that experience in the coma, in the near-death experience. She said, if I chose to go back to my body, I knew I would heal. Mm-hmm. She knew it. That's amazing. I kind of wish that we could all have near-death experiences without having to go through all that kind of suffering.
Exactly. That's why I'm like, okay, so I get it's possible, but like, how do we tap into that shift in consciousness without, you know, having a near-death experience? Like, how do we have that powerful of a shift without?
What's your answer to that?
Oh God, I don't know.
Well, just take a stab.
I mean, yeah, it's just continuing to, you know, it's a practice. Life is a practice. Life is a journey of continuing to get back. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that.
Oh, you were doing so well right there. You're so convincing too. Well, maybe it has. No, but I like what you're saying though. It's a practice, and I'm going to ask you in a few minutes what some of your practices are, right? In addition to, like, you know, meditation and Pilates. You do Pilates.
Oh yeah.
You told me that you just got back from Pilates yesterday when we talked. So next question for you. Oh, okay. So There was this like really emotionally charged scene in the movie where a man with a brain tumor was being treated by Rob Wergan. He's the divine conduit. He seems like just a ball of love.
Rob, yeah, he is. And he's got these like gigantic hands.
Oh, really?
He was meant to be a healer. I mean, he's the largest hands I've ever held.
That's how handy.
Handy.
So, so as he was doing the work, the treatment on this guy with the brain tumor, the camera panned out to I guess a room full of people who were observing. Among them was you. There wasn't a dry eye in the room, including mine. As I was watching it, it's one of the times when I wept, and so were you. Right? You were crying then.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what were you experiencing there?
What
were you experiencing there?
Well, Rob, I mean, he says like when he's healing someone, because he does group healings all the time, he says when he's healing someone, everybody else that's witnessing it and in the room is receiving the same healing. So if like he's working on someone's liver, people in the audience are getting a little liver tune-up, you know? And I just saw, yeah. So Roger.
So I wasn't in the room, but I was moved to tears.
So yeah, I don't know if that
I got a little liver love, or well, I guess it wouldn't be.
Maybe the energy, it could. I'm sure energy, you know, transcends even digital media. I think. I don't know.
Even if it's not present, that was recorded like over a year ago.
Yeah, I don't know.
That's interesting, though, isn't it?
It is. It is.
Because I was really moved, and I didn't know why. I didn't even know what he's doing. He's just got his. I mean, he's like holding the guy and just saying loving things, and I don't know what kind of work. Is there a name? Does he use a name for the work that he was doing? Because it's not. Is it Reiki? Is it?
It's energy healing. He basically says channeling. He's basically like, you know, whether it's he's channeling pure divine love, so divine energy from God or source or whatever term is comfortable for you. He just kind of is that channel. I mean, and he's starts sweating. There's like crazy heat coming out of his hands, and he just gets out of the way. He doesn't know. He's just kind of guided to go where he doesn't even want to know what you have, you know. Or what label you come in with, or what.
Really?
He's just guided to put his hands and move around whatever he's guided to do, and Rob Wergan gets out of the way, and he's just kind of a conduit for that divine light to come in and blast out any density or stuckness that's in your body.
Man. So at one point. Gregg Barden, who is a geologist, by training, which was like study rocks.
Yeah.
He's moved on.
He's moved on.
He's moved out.
Yes.
Up more. He describes how when we have an emotion within our heart, that then the heart then sends a message to the brain. And so I guess contingent upon the quality of the emotion, right? That governs the level, the quality of the communication that comes from the heart to the brain. And the communication instructs the brain to release chemicals, which Beckwith categorizes into two categories, either tonic or toxic, right? So there's an emotion, right? Like, so if the emotion is rage, panic, right, jealousy, any of the dark ones, right, or what I call low grade states, then the message comes in like an ugly looking, if it was diagrammed, an ugly looking jagged, right, form, and that's incoherence, and that instructs the brain to release stuff like cortisol and adrenaline, which is like the survival drugs, right, inner pharmacy. And am I getting this?
You are. And it comes up with a jagged because they're actually measuring this with scientific, you know, Heart Math Institute. They measure. Okay,
you just cut to the chase there. I wanted to. Nobody ever says heart math in the movie, not once.
I know.
Why is weird. That? So my question to you was at the end of this was like, are we talking heart math here? Because this sounds like heart math.
Yeah, Gregg's really involved with heart math, and
he never said the words heart math. He never said the words once. That's why I thought, how interesting.
I think it just got cut because we just had to keep trimming down. at the end.
So tell us just a little bit about that, because a couple of my friends, I come from a psychology background. I was a licensed therapist before I got into coaching. I was a social worker before that, but a lot of my friends, not a lot, a couple of my friends got into heart math. And one of them brought some device over to my house one time, and like hooked me up. It was like some kind of biofeedback, and it was making a sound, and it was telling you when you're getting incoherence. He gave me very ambiguous instructions, and just like said, just follow the technology. Just let the technology tell you when you're in coherence. Anyway, I think the important thing is you can measure. I mean, this is all scientifically measured. How when you are, how your emotions affect your brainwaves and your, like Joe Dispenza, they hook in his workshops too, that he hooks them up to heart brain, I forget the name of the actual machine, but it's he had him wearing these head dresses with a bunch of stickers on it. Things, and you measure when people are in meditation, their brainwaves, I guess it's heart brain coherence. Right. It gets in this like really coherent wave pattern. And then when they're, before they get into their meditation or whatever, it's just that sporadic, which is similar to if you're stressed out and you're negative, or thinking of that fearful thoughts or angry thoughts or jealous or insecure or whatever it is, it shows that you're incoherent. So I guess basically it's just scientifically proving that negative emotions release negative chemistry and an effect on your body, and positive emotions, love, compassion, gratitude, which is the state of mind you're in when you're in meditation, that will release positive healing chemicals into your body, and all the specifically like dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin.
Exactly.
I'm just trying to show off all the notes that I took right now.
Smart. You're a smart cookie.
But so what I take away, right, as a mental coach from this is just even more and more compelling evidence for why it's important to train ourselves to choose, operative word, to choose to put ourselves into truly elevated states that are also they're not just elevated, they're intelligent. Like gratitude, enthusiasm, right? Peace, competency, expertise, anything that has us feel great, right?
Yeah. Amen.
And that's stuff, and this is why I'm doing, by the way, this is why I do these talks. This is why I have this Tough Talk series, is to educate people on exactly all of this. Because we didn't have a class on it. I didn't.
No.
I went to grad school in psychology and never had one. What is that?
I don't know.
I'm going to call bullshit on it.
Do it.
All right. I call bullshit on that.
We got to do the Chris Doris University of graduate program.
Here's an so going back to when I started my professional career, I was a clinical social worker working with folks with all kinds of different mental diagnoses, and among them were bipolar disorder, which some refer to as manic depression, and schizophrenia. A few forms of chronic schizophrenia. So my question for you is, because that stuff doesn't come up in this documentary, but my question to you is, either in the making of the film or in any of your experience, in your research or in your life experience, have you ever had any discussions with anybody on like the nature of these seemingly so far untreatable mental conditions? Like, maybe bipolar is not untreatable, but schizophrenia seems to be still mystifying us.
Definitely a tough one. I spoke to Darren Weissman, who's one of the experts in the film, and he has a technique called the Lifeline Technique.
Lifeline?
Lifeline.
Okay.
And it has to do, it's based on all these different kind of disciplines that he created this system where he can kind of, by using muscle testing, applied kinesiology, the body he can go through a series of questions or whatever, and he can pinpoint in the body and at what time the trauma happened. He can go back, based on the acupuncture meridians and the connection of everything in the body. He can find where trauma is stored in the body, what age you were when that trauma occurred. It's wild. And he's told me he's successfully gotten people off bipolar medication, schizophrenia, like a lot of
Really?
tough mental health issues.
Does he have any books, or where do I learn more about him?
I go to his website. I'm sure he has books.
You have the way to find each of these people's stuff in the credits of the movie.
Yeah, and on our website, healdocumentary.com, we have bios. Yeah.
Oh, on all of them?
I think so.
Right on. He's a chiropractor by training, isn't he?
Yeah.
A few people in the movie are.
Yeah.
It's one of the more interesting things about this tribe of experts is that it seems for several of them, their fundamental training is not really what they're doing now.
Right.
Not directly. Not traditionally.
Right.
Like the geologist, for example.
Yeah. Great.
I think that's the greatest example. I'd love to know his story of how that shift.
Right.
So I want to this is not a question. This is simply me acknowledging something. You got mad soccer skills.
Thank you.
Were you a player?
I've played my whole life since I was 5 years old.
Yeah, look pretty obvious. And you look pretty. Was that new? Is that oh God, I go there all the time. Santa Monica.
That's Santa Monica. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow, that was cool. You look so happy. Did you just stumble? Were you guys out just filming and you're like, oh, they're playing soccer?
Yeah, we were getting some B-roll and it kind of tied in with like, do what you love. And I'm like, oh, I love soccer. So I'm just going to hop into
I love that. That was cool. That was a cool, neat surprise. So mad skills. Is there a difference between integrative and holistic medicine? Or are they just two names for the same thing?
I mean, I kind of view them as the same. I feel like holistic might seem, by definition or by most people's definition, a little bit more natural. Integrative combines best of both worlds, Western and Eastern. It kind of takes into account everything. But I just think holistic takes into account everything. It sees the whole picture, the mind, body, and spirit, mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. So I don't see any difference.
In your opinion, do you think that traditionally trained Western medical model physicians are warming up to holistic practitioners and integrative medicine techniques?
For sure.
Yeah.
I think that also there is a demand. Even like I have friends who are doctors, and then they get, I think what usually happens is they need something to knock them out of their one-grained training way of thinking in Western medicine. And it's usually a personal illness or diagnosis that they're going through or someone close to them, but usually it's a personal thing where they go through something and they realize, oh, shoot. Like, for instance, Kelly Brogan.
Is that the radical remission woman?
No, that's Kelly Turner.
You have like 90 Kellys, okay?
I know.
Is that like a prerequisite? I guess so.
Great name. So I'm biased. But Kelly Brogan, she's a beautiful, dark-haired woman who is a psychologist. No,
she's a psychiatrist. She's a holistic. I paid attention to that.
Yeah, psychiatrist.
That matters to me. There are very few. The combination of words "holistic psychiatrist" blew my mind.
Yes.
So okay. So keep going.
It's a perfect example. Her story. She was like a traditional, top university, like I think Cornell and psychiatrist who she was doling out antidepressants like candy. She had an unhealthy diet herself. She was giving, she thought antidepressants were like the key to health. Yeah. And she would give a prescription to pregnant people. And then it wasn't until two things happened. She got pregnant and then she was like, oh, I don't think taking an antidepressant would be good for the child. So she started thinking like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doling them out. And then she got diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis.
Yeah, she said that, right.
And the doctors told her, she'd be on a pill the rest of her life, and she just kind of like light bulb woke up and was like, no. And then she realized she's burning out her adrenals, drinking coffee all day, eating sugar and like not sleeping, just a terrible, lifestyle. And changed up her lifestyle. And in 6 months she healed Hashimoto's thyroiditis. Once she started that deep dive into the truth and the medical literature and all of the things that she was personally having to research and change in her life, she was just like, holy moly, we are not given the truth in medical school.
Wow.
And now she is like full extreme other end of the spectrum, totally natural, getting people off meds.
I need to talk to her.
She's amazing.
I really need to talk to her. One of my next project that I've already started is creating an online course on anxiety and depression, because I'm really pissed off. As a clinical social worker, I watch people just get drugged up and then drugged for the drugs. And it's terrible, and it's still terrible. It's the whole big pharma thing, which we're not going to go down that slippery slope.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's a bad deal.
She has an amazing program, and it starts with like a pretty strict 30-day, diet. She does nutrition as like her basis foundation. You can't, your brain chemistry is so tied to your gut health that she starts there. And then after that 30, 45 days, whatever her change in diet is, at that point, then she can evaluate how safely best to get you off meds.
You said, and I love every bit of that, right? Is getting people off meds or onto the right meds, right?
Yes.
The meds that our brains naturally create, or our bodies create for us. God, I had another follow-up. You just said something. Gut. Do you know much about gut cells? I don't. I've just heard that they have unique functions. So that there's like more legitimate, or like the phrase, the colloquialism, hey, trust your gut, is actually more literal than the vast majority of us realize, because our gut cells are communicating with us.
Yeah, we actually have like brain cells in our guts. We have neurons in our gut. So it's all connected.
Yeah.
Brain, heart, and gut. So, the gut is kind of our second mind.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
Oh, that's neat. Oh, our gut is our second mind. That's pretty neat. So what are your practices? What are the things that you do, or the disciplines of practices, the lifestyle, whatever stuff that you rely on in order for your health?
Yeah. Diet, exercise, and then kind of some mental practices. I would say, as far as diet goes, I've tried twice to be vegetarian. It hasn't worked out for me. I'm type O blood type, and I feel like I just need that, clean source of meat every once in a while.
Good.
So that's personally where I'm at right now. I know that like a lot of highly conscious people think that vegan is the right way. So I'm not there yet, but I eat as much unprocessed as I can. Mm-hmm. If I do eat processed food or some sort of convenience food like crackers or chips, I look for just the most simple, basic ingredients, Mm-hmm. And so, I try to eat like a unprocessed diet as much as I can, and just clean sources, organic produce and grass-fed, naturally raised meat products if I'm eating them. Dairy, I'm a sucker for cheese. I love cheese. So I'll only eat like clean sources. The cows and the milk in Europe tend to be a little bit of a different enzyme, or have different enzymes in them, and less of an effect on my digestion. So I'll eat like Irish cheddar or imported cheeses when I need that. So anyways, basically diet, I don't stress.
Is that the Kerrygold stuff?
Kerrygold.
I love that.
Love the Kerrygold.
Do you do bulletproof coffee?
I do. I just have 1 cup of coffee in the morning with 1 tablespoon of coconut. I do my own.
Do you put the butter in it?
Moderation.
The Kerrygold butter?
Modification. I don't. I used to, but I like the butter taste of my coffee just doesn't do it for me. But I don't mind the coconut oil. It makes it creamy, and I feel like it makes it less acidic on my stomach. So I just do one cup of coffee in the morning and a tablespoon of coconut oil. And then so diet, I don't stress. I just eat as clean as possible.
What kind of exercise do you do?
Exercise, I do. Well, I'm pregnant. I don't know if I told you that.
No, I don't know. I don't think you told me that. Congratulations.
Thank you. So my exercise is a little different now. I used to be a runner. I ran. I go through phases, you know.
Sure.
So now I'm just doing Pilates and walking and yoga.
Yeah, and yoga.
Yoga to keep it all open and
right on
down there.
Now, tell me.
And then
okay.
Yeah, meditation. And
Okay.
I would say my two like spiritual practices are meditation and like gratitude work. You know.
Gratitude work. Just give me a little bit of specifics on what that means.
It's kind of a version of visualization. I love to just, I think gratitude is a great place to, it's a great tool to, if you're stressed out, if you're angry, if you're kind of getting pulled back into like some pettiness, switching or stressed out, super stressed out about something, switching your focus, pivoting your focus to what you have in your life to be grateful for is a great way to shift your energy and, you know, stop that kind of downward spiral.
Yeah.
Kind of like the Joe Dispenza wheelchair, you know, your mind hijacks you.
Yeah.
Coming back to gratitude is a good way. And then also I think it's a great tool for kind of manifestation or creation. I like to write. I'm a writer. So I write in a journal and I give thanks for things that are actually happening in my life that I'm grateful for. But then I mix in, you know, giving thanks for things that I want to create as if I already have.
That's very interesting.
Fantasizing a little
I
bit.
love that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. That's a nugget. I love that. All right. So giving.
It's like fantasizing. It's like
Right.
training your brain to focus on what you want rather than getting sucked into what you don't want, kind of thing.
That's so cool. Giving thanks for what you haven't even created yet.
Yeah.
That's
As
not
if you already
intuitive.
had it.
That's pretty neat. Huh.
And then it kind of feels good. And then you're just like, oh, you start to feel the feelings of having what
That
it
is kick-ass. You're giving thanks for the future.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that.
Without thinking too much, you know, at first it feels kind of weird and then you just like have fun with it, you know?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I love that too, because having fun is very intelligent. I often talk about the intelligence of fun, because when we're having fun is when we're activating all the good states that activate all the good chemicals that have us be good and smart. And have soccer skills. So what's next for you, Kelly?
Well,
other than the fact that you're having a baby.
Creating this little baby is my next project.
Yeah, right on.
I'm 5.5. I'm halfway through, so that's good.
Cool.
Well, over halfway.
Nice.
And then, like I said, we just finished the book version of Heal documentary because I think it's, you know, like you have your books there with your paper straw page holders.
Right. Yeah, these are all books that actually were referenced. In your documentary.
Yeah.
Healing by Andrew Weil. Is he still? Is he? What's that guy doing anymore? I don't hear anything about him.
I asked Andrew to be in the film, and he
did.
So he was one of the like 2 no's. So his loss, you know.
Well, I'll put this book right in the trash. No,
but I did.
We're talking about Andrew Weil, spontaneous healing. The guy's a brilliant dude. Is he
brilliant,
still in Tucson? Brilliant. Is he still down in Tucson?
I think so.
Okay. Beautiful. So anyway, I interrupted you again.
What were we talking about?
What your future holds professionally?
Oh, yeah. So we're releasing the Heal book this spring. Heal is coming out on Netflix February 1st, which is cool.
That is very cool.
Because they sent out last year, they sent out the whole industry-wide thing that they weren't licensing other people's content. They were just putting all their money into creating their own. And I was just like, nope, I see this on Netflix. Like, don't take no for an answer. And we kept persisting. And then they licensed our film. So
hell yeah.
There's not a ton of conscious content on Netflix at this moment. So hopefully we stand out a little bit. But
beautiful. Congratulations on that. That's huge.
Thank you. And then Hay House, we did a Heal Summit. An hour and 45 minutes, everyone kept telling me, oh, you need to cut it down even more, for a documentary. And I was like, there's just no way. There's so much good information. So I have these 17, 18 experts that you talked about. I think there's 18 interviews that I did, but only 17 made the film. And those interviews are all like an hour plus. So I had all this great content, but only like 2 to 7 minutes of each interview got into the film. So I released with Hay House this last summer the full-length interviews in a Heal Summit.
I'm going to leave my office. Oh,
it was great.
I'm screwed. I need to go out and load up on legal pads.
Yeah, it was really great information, and you got.
When does that happen?
So that was this past summer we released it.
But I mean, when it's out.
It's out already.
How do I not know about this?
I don't know.
What is up with that?
I don't know. I'm wondering if
I'm experiencing anger. I need to do some of the work here. I need to go into gratitude because I'm getting pissed. So where do we get that?
So I don't know if it's even still available. I'll talk to them. We were going to do a new set of interviews to be released this summer. So we're talking about that. Maybe because it's coming out on Netflix and it should get a little more exposure, maybe we will just release the same summit that we released earlier this summer again and get the full length interviews out there because it's such great information. So
I need to see that.
I'll work on that. Yeah. I'll see if you can still get it. I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because that's going to really influence the way I serve.
Yeah. No, I know. I'll find out. There's got to be a way.
Where should folks? Thank you. Where do folks follow you on social media?
At Heal Documentary, Twitter and Instagram and Facebook.
At Heal Documentary. I'll put these in the notes.
Personally,
that's simple. At Heal Documentary.
Heal Documentary. And then I'm not really active on Twitter, although I think it's great. Instagram, I'm at Kelly Gores. You can see some of my personal.
At Kelly Gores, IG. Yeah, I follow you on. Oh, that's how I stalked you.
Yeah.
And you're so gracious. I really appreciate your. All right, here I go back into gratitude because I got pissed off there for a second.
Smart.
You know, like we said in the beginning, before we pressed record, I told you that I often set the intention in the beginning to go for half an hour. I knew that would be impossible. I'm unbelievably impressed that we only doubled that.
It's fun.
Man, I'll tell you what. Yeah, I agree, and important. What you're doing is amazing. I want to thank you unbelievably sincerely from the bottom of my heart, not just for making time today to share with the people that follow my work, but for for caring about all of this and for being so masterful in the way that you're putting it together. And I can't wait to see what other miracles you create in the future.
Thank you. Thank you.
Noonan Gores, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, and keep up your awesome work as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Okay, take care.